Welcome, guys. Welcome to another episode of the School of Conscious Growth. And today I am joined by Kurt, who is a high performance coach. So I recently watched his lecture where he talked about breathing and how he incorporates it on S&C. So we're going to be discussing that. So, Kurt, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jag. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on here today. I'm a high performance coach, and that has taken me all around the world, Jag, especially to places like China, where I've spent the last couple of years working with athletes from the Shanghai Institute of Sport and incorporating a lot of these breathing techniques within the sports that I worked with there. And then before that, I spent a bit of time in Australian football, have traveled around, worked a little bit in Canada and the US. But breathing has always been such an important part of my life, mate, since I was young. So, yeah, from a young age, my mum would teach myself and my brother and sister how to meditate when we were kids and breathe.
Amazing.
So she could get us to calm down and relax. 3 kids under 3, Jag, never easy, I'm sure. And, from there, that just sparked my curiosity within mindfulness and breathing. And from that, that's led me down the path to read as much as I can, to experience as much as I can and incorporate it within my own life. And as such, I did when I was playing football, and I saw what an effect it had on me. And from then on, I always had the view that high performance was such a holistic effort instead of just how much you can squat on a barbell. So it's been my mission to get clearer on that and to be able to bring that into the athletes that I serve.
Amazing. Like, you don't hear that story that often, especially like in the past where your parents teach you mindfulness. As a young child, did you kind of embrace it straight away, or was it kind of something hard to really embrace?
No, I guess it was easy to embrace. I mean, we all looked up to our mother and loved our mum, and so it wasn't too hard to embrace from there. I mean, it got us a good night's sleep. It had us calm down. Mum would have us put on some nice relaxing music for us. Normally it would be ocean sounds and jungle sounds, which was my favorite, and just teach us basically how to breathe and how to relax, and from there how to visualize and feel what we want, and to teach us that we were loved and everything like that. So, I can't thank my parents enough for giving us that foundation in life.
Amazing. And in your lecture, you talk a lot about kind of the breathing techniques, and then there's so many layers to it. I guess, how did you first get involved in understanding kind of breathing techniques? Like, did you go to seminars? Did you get trained on it? Like, where did your journey start?
Yeah, so I guess from that young age, with mum fostering that influence from a young age, that would open the door for me to read a lot, right? And so I learned a lot from those growing up, like Eckhart Tolle, in just how breath brings you back to the present moment, for example, and moving through like people like him along that journey, and that led me to places like Wim Hof with the work that he does and the awesome stuff that he does around the world. And from there, I did a course around Wim Hof on his stuff, and I just started implementing it in my life. And then through other things like learning Kundalini yoga, different kinds of breath with Kundalini in there, and then moving from, again, putting it in my life, and then moving down to my auntie, who's a holotropic breathwork facilitator, and learning holotropic breathwork through her. So another kind of breath on top of that. And then the last couple of years, have jumped in and done the XPT performance course on breathing as well, which took a lot of the breaths that were all a part of all this as well, and put it in a more succinct technique for performance. And so I've adapted that once again into the way I incorporate it into my own way. So little bits from everywhere, really, Jag, and putting it together with what I've experienced in my own life and what I know works. So yeah, putting it all together like that.
And in your kind of lecture, you kind of, one quote that kind of stood out for me was, breathing is the remote control to the brain. in your S&C kind of coaching and with your clients you're working with, how have you found breathing has benefited them?
Yeah, well, in terms of that quote, which is one of my favorite quotes, but being the remote control to the brain, so it's going to control everything, right? And especially with performance, especially in sport, 80-90% of it's going to be mental when you walk out in the field. You can be prepared as much as possible in the gym, on the field. You can do all the training in the world physically, but if you step out onto that field and you're afraid of your opponent, or you don't believe in yourself, or you can feel the crowd around you and that's making you nervous, then you're not going to perform optimally. And so allowing and teaching the breath allows the athlete, the person, to come back to awareness and come back to that present moment, which is where high performance happens. So it's allowing them to take control over their life and take control over their situation and bring themselves back to a homeostasis state so that they can perform at their best.
And in terms of like incorporating, I know you mentioned different ways you incorporated it in the warm-up, the actual session itself, and then the cool down. In terms of the warm-up, how do you incorporate breathing on like kind of just on a normal level for someone who's going to the gym, for example?
Yeah, okay. So with a warm-up, what we're looking to do is we're looking to get the athletes to become present and then focus in on what needs to be done, while also exciting the body, tapping into the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight nervous system, which is what we're going to use to be able to lift heavy weights, run really fast, and get the athletes, get their bodies ready for what's to come in the session, right? So for example, if it's a heavy conditioning session, we want to make sure that the respiratory and pulmonary systems are nice and warmed up, and we can use the breath for this. So for example, even if you're just going to the gym, I'll get the athletes to start lying down, and I get them to connect in with some box breathing. So that is breathing in for 3, holding for 3, exhaling for 3, holding for 3. Okay, so just connecting back to the breath, connecting back to their body. So it doesn't matter how the day went, doesn't matter what you're having for dinner, doesn't matter what's going on with your partner or whatever, you're coming back to the present moment. You're coming back to what needs to be done. And from there, I would anchor in the intention for the session. Okay, we're gonna what we need for training, what you want to get out of that training, to really hold that in the mind and hold that in the body. And then I would pick up the breathing a little bit. So something like a Wim Hof tempo for a couple of rounds. So 30 breaths in, 30 breaths out at a higher tempo with a hold in there, to excite the body, to get the pulmonary system and cardio system ready to go, and then move on to a warm-up. So take 5 minutes just to prime the athlete and get them ready for the session.
Nice. And with that, like as a physio, like I always find some patients come in and you kind of try and teach them kind of breathing to relax, and they don't know how to breathe like through the stomach. They use a lot of their accessory muscles. How do you coach someone when they kind of turn up and they're struggling with their breathing pattern? How do you coach them out of it? And do you find that you spend a lot of time like kind of teaching the proper mechanics before you kind of lead into like the more kind of more technical stuff?
Yeah, absolutely, Jag. And that's where we need to start when assessing anybody, right? Is assessing the mechanics of their breath, because for a lot of people, for a lot of us, dysfunctional breathing is really quite common these days. So a lot of people have trouble breathing deep into their belly, deep into the diaphragm, pulling it down. A lot of people are really stay up in their chest, okay, and breathe from the chest, which has been really, obviously, really inefficient, but also affects things like your carbon dioxide tolerance, okay, which just quickly, it's carbon dioxide that triggers you to breathe, not oxygen. So if you have a poor tolerance, it's not going to take much, for example, walking up the stairs, to get you into an over breathing state, right? So,
Yeah.
which is not good, because you're dumping excess oxygen out of the body that you're not even using. So the way that you should breathe, just to touch on proper breathing at the moment, is it should be easy. It should be effortless. It should be in and out through the nose. It should be quiet. You should be able to hear it. Okay. And it should be nice, slow, and deep into pulling the diaphragm down into the belly. And then on the exhale on the way up, it should leave the belly and leave the chest and go up from there. It should expand 360 degrees around the waist and filling it up nice like a tire. And you shouldn't have to raise your shoulders. You shouldn't have to change your posture at all. It should just be nice and effortless. Simple. But from starting here, Jag, you'd start here and assess. So I'd assess my athletes all from here to begin with. And by doing that, I'd have a hand on their chest, a hand on their belly to see what was moving first. And I'd help them by bringing awareness to them, right? Because a lot of the time, they may have been breathing like this their whole life. So, to change something that they've got zero awareness around is going to take a bit of effort. So putting their hands there just helps them tap in and helps them feel to what's moving first, helps them feel to what's going on. And then they just need a few cues. Okay, we need to breathe into the belly first and then the chest. Okay, and then they just need to practice. Okay, and once they're practicing, once they've got it down, lying down, I get them sitting up. Okay, to get them practicing sitting up. Okay, they can do it sitting up. Now, can they do it standing? Can you do it in all these different positions? Because if you can't do it in these positions, how are you going to do it when you're running on the field? So, and some athletes get it straight away and others need a bit of work on it. Okay, you may have been breathing like this for freaking 30 years. So it takes a bit to unpattern it. But once you have that, then we can move on to these other breathing techniques.
And with that kind of early stage, do you find that some people kind of give up early? Like, I can imagine if they're not used to it, how long does it normally take them to kind of become accustomed to that kind of new breathing pattern?
Well, it depends how long they've been breathing like that for, Jag, or depends how long it takes them to be able to get to feel their body and to be able to feel it and change it, right? So it just depends on those sort of factors. But, some get it quickly, some are already breathing well, some aren't breathing well. It took me a couple months with one of the older girls in the handball team that I had in China, just to be able to get to feel it, just to get her to feel it, which is another problem, right? Which is the whole reason why we're doing breathing, is to tap back into the body so you can feel what's going on in your body.
Yes.
Because we spend so much time in our head, so much time in our mind. Breathing helps bring us back to the body, right? So in doing so and being able to breathe better, we're teaching her to be able to tap in and to feel what's going on in her body better on top of that.
Yeah. And I guess, like, for someone who's completely new, would you kind of get them to start breathing just through the nose with the kind of the stomach diaphragm pulling that down, or is there something else you get them to start with?
No, exactly like that. Exactly like I said. So we're having the hands on the chest and the belly and just closing the eyes. Okay, because when we close the eyes, we bring our attention inward and to see what moves first. Notice what moves first. Okay, if the chest is moving first, you're like, okay, well, how can I bring my attention into breathing into the belly so the bottom hand moves first? So really knowing and being able to start to tap into feel, what's moving first, and then you go from there. Okay, I've got that down. Now put my hands underneath my ribs so I can feel the front, sides, and the back. And am I filling it up? Am I expanding with it? Okay, I'm not quite breathing there. How can I breathe soft and deep? Okay, to expand and to fill up the diaphragm. And that's where I'd start. And once you've got that down pat, fantastic. Keep breathing like that.
Nice. And another kind of thing that interested me was kind of mouth taping on your lecture. So with that, where do you incorporate mouth taping, and what are the benefits of that?
Yeah, so mouth taping is used to really as an extra layer to force you to breathe in and out through your nose, right? So in the lecture, in the way that I speak and in the way that I use it to tape the athlete's mouth when we're doing conditioning training. And that just adds an extra layer of forcing them to nasal breathe. It makes it actually easy for them to nasal breathe because they don't have a choice, but forcing them to breathe in and out through the nose at a higher activity, at a higher heart rate, okay, which then causes an excess of carbon dioxide buildup. So it actually builds more CO2 because you can't dump it out with your mouth. And what that allows is the body to become more tolerant of the carbon dioxide that builds up in the blood. Okay, and through that allows the breathing rate to come down, right? So if you've got more tolerance, you don't need to breathe as much. Right? If you have a poor tolerance, you're going to overbreathe. You're going to feel like you're out of breath all the time. But when you have a good carbon dioxide tolerance, you can hold a lower breath rate at higher intensity. So you become more efficient with how you go about it, with how you're breathing, with how you're exercising, and how your body's recovering. So that's what I'll use it for.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also use mouth taping for when you sleep, if you snore, if you mouth breathe at night, because obviously you're unaware of it. And and that's what similarly is. That's what it's used for, to force you to breathe through your nose so that you're breathing properly.
Okay, and would you say like breathing through your nose is inherently better than your mouth, or would you say it depends on individual exercise?
No, breathing through your nose should be 99% of your breathing. It should be absolutely 99. Of course, there's other breathing techniques where you can breathe in and out through your mouth, and that gets like holotropic breathing, which I facilitate as well. Which elicits a different response, right, for a different purpose. But for proper breathing, it should be nose, and you should be holding that for as long as you can. So, okay. And then just like you saw with the breathing gears, Jag, in the talk, you should be holding nose for as long as you can, which will help build that tolerance. Say you're running, you can help build that tolerance as far as you can with the carbon dioxide. And then when you really can't, you go nose, mouth. And then when you can't hold that rate anymore, then you mouth.
Fine, amazing.
And then, exactly. And then as you recover, you do the same on the way down. So you go from mouth, okay, to nose, to nose on the way back down.
And with your breathing, where do you want to kind of take that now going forward? Because I know a lot of the S&C coaches don't talk about it as much. It's not something that's as discussed. Is that something you want to kind of build up now and take it to another level? Or is there another kind of path for you?
Yeah, well, I just want to keep learning. There's a lot of people doing some really cool stuff in the space, and I'll continue to learn. And it's a part of my life, right? It's a part of who I am and what I love to do, and it's a real passion for me. So, I'll continue to educate athletes around it. I'll continue to really put it in my program and assist the athletes to get the best they can out of it. So for me, it's part of life, and I really enjoy it, mate. So I'll continue to learn. I'll continue to grow with it, and integrate it even more seamlessly as we go along. So that's where I want to take it. I really just want to share it with everybody, and show it what it can do as part of performance.
Amazing. Is there anything that you would advise for like beginners, apart from kind of the breathing technique you did? Is there anything else you'd kind of advise, or any kind of literature you'd get them to read?
I would get. Yeah, I think the book Breathe or Breath should be read by everybody, by Dan Brule, and we can put that in the show notes, Jag. I think.
Yeah.
But I think that should be read by everybody. That should be read by everybody at school. Everybody. That should be part of education. It's a light, easy book that really talks about the benefits of breathing. It really talks about all the good stuff, and it's so interesting. And it's his journey through it, and it's really interesting, really fun. And so that's where I get people to start there, and you'll really see how important breathing is.
Amazing. Quickly touching on Wim Hof, I know you mentioned you kind of studied in that area and you kind of experienced that area. How did that kind of change your life? I know, like, I've tried the cold showers and the cold baths. It's extremely difficult. How have you found it change your kind of own experience?
Yeah, well, when I started doing it, I was living in Vancouver at the time, and it was coming into winter. So I distinctly remember going and doing my first cold plunge on New Year's Day out on the runoffs of one of the snow mountains. So it was absolutely freezing cold as part of that. But I found that it really opened the eyes to breathing for performance for me, to the beginning for performance, right? Because with doing the breath and the push-ups, for example, that's part of the program that he does, I always end up holding my breath for about 4 minutes and able to push out, 50 to 60 push-ups when, I'm a heavy guy, and it could get out 20 push-ups maybe. So for me, it was a real good indicator to show like what is possible with the breath and with the performance as part of that. because before then I only really saw it as part of meditation, as part of the mindfulness side of things, but really it really opened my eyes to what could be done with performance. And it really opened for me like what could be done on this part of things. Excuse me.
Okay, awesome. Okay, final words. What would you kind of, from what you've learned about breathing, how is it kind of, what are the biggest lessons you've learned from breathing in that sense?
Well, one of the biggest learnings, that dysfunctional breathing can be detrimental to your life. As simple as that. And same goes for the opposite way around. Proper breathing can literally breathe new life into your body, into your mind, into your soul. So that's one of the biggest learnings I've found, I think, Jag, because when you're not breathing properly, you're not breathing in the life force that's there for you. You're not breathing in that nourishing life force, and from it you can get you can get illnesses. You won't be strong immunely. You'll get sore muscles, all this stuff, and it's simple, and simply you can fix it by breathing properly. That's it.
Amazing. Where can people find you, and where can they also access that talk?
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram would be best, which is Kurt_Tropiano. But to access the talk, it's still actually going on at the moment. So I won't be able to put it online until the online conference is finished. But we'll post a link on my Instagram so that people can find that talk. So,
yeah, awesome. Thank you for joining us. And I'll hopefully see you soon.
Thanks, Jag. Appreciate it, mate.
No worries.